Some of the smartest people in the world make terrible decisions. They can solve complicated problems, understand difficult ideas, and outperform almost everyone around them. And yet, when it comes to money, relationships, careers, or major life decisions, intelligence doesn't always protect them from making obvious mistakes. In fact, sometimes the problem isn't that they can't think, it's that they can think of very sophisticated reasons to justify a bad decision. So, why does this happen? And more importantly, if intelligence isn't enough to make good decisions, what actually is? We've been taught to associate intelligence with good judgment. Get good grades, learn quickly, solve difficult problems, become successful. But intelligence and judgment aren't the same thing. Intelligence can help you process information, it can help you understand complex problems, but making a good decision requires something else. It requires knowing what information actually matters. It requires recognizing when you're emotionally attached to an answer. It requires being willing to admit that you might be wrong. One of the biggest problems intelligent people can encounter is overconfidence. Imagine someone who has spent years becoming an expert in their field. They've been right many times. People respect their opinion. Their experience gives them confidence. But success creates a dangerous possibility. You can become so accustomed to being right that you stop looking for reasons you might be wrong. And this doesn't only happen to CEOs or scientists. It can happen to all of us. You make a prediction, it comes true. You make another prediction, that one works too. Eventually, your brain starts treating your judgment as more reliable than it actually is. The problem isn't confidence itself. Confidence is useful. The problem is confidence without calibration. A better question isn't, am I confident? It's, how often am I actually right? Those are very different questions. Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful forces affecting human reasoning, confirmation bias. Once we believe something, we naturally tend to notice information that supports our belief and give less attention to information that challenges it. Imagine you decide that a particular business idea is going to succeed. You start researching it. You find 5 articles explaining why the market is growing. You find successful companies doing something similar. You become excited. But then you discover 3 major problems with your idea. Suddenly, those problems feel less important. Maybe you tell yourself, they'll figure it out, it's probably temporary. Other companies had the same problem. Notice what's happening. You're no longer simply evaluating information. You're building a case for the conclusion you already want. And intelligent people can be particularly good at this because they may have more tools for constructing convincing arguments. The ability to explain something convincingly does not necessarily mean the explanation is correct. Here's another paradox. Expertise can make you better at solving problems inside your field, but it can also create blind spots. Imagine an experienced executive who has spent 20 years succeeding in one industry. Their experience is incredibly valuable, but the world around them changes. New technology appears, customer behavior changes, a new competitor enters the market, and suddenly, the strategies that created their success may no longer work. The dangerous thought is, this worked before, so it will work again. That's how experience can quietly turn into rigidity. The smartest people aren't necessarily the ones who know the most. Often they're the ones who remain willing to update what they know. They can say, this is what I currently believe, but what evidence would change my mind? That's intellectual humility. And it may be more valuable than simply being intelligent. Now we get to something even more uncomfortable. Sometimes we don't reason to discover the answer. We reason to protect an identity. Think about political beliefs, career choices, relationships, even the products we buy. Once a decision becomes part of who we are, admitting that it was wrong becomes psychologically expensive. Imagine spending 5 years building a business. You have invested your time, money, and reputation. Then the evidence starts suggesting that the business model isn't working. The logical response might be to change direction, but emotionally, changing direction feels like admitting that 5 years were wasted. So the brain starts looking for reasons to continue, not because continuing is necessarily rational, but because admitting failure hurts. This is one reason good decisions require emotional distance. Sometimes the question isn't, do I want this to be true? It's, if this were someone else's decision, what would I tell them to do? This leads directly to the sunk cost trap. A sunk cost is something you've already spent and cannot recover. Your time, your money, your effort, your previous decisions. But humans naturally hate wasting resources. So we often continue investing in something simply because we've already invested so much. Think about watching a terrible movie because you've already watched an hour, or staying in a failing project because you've already spent months on it, or continuing with a business strategy because changing direction would mean admitting that the original strategy was wrong. But the past cannot be changed. The only useful question is, if I were starting from zero today, knowing what I know now, would I choose this again? If the answer is no, the money, time, and effort you've already spent shouldn't control the next decision. There is another way intelligence can work against us: overthinking. When you can see dozens of possibilities, every decision becomes more complicated. You imagine every potential outcome, you research every option, you compare every variable, and eventually you don't make a decision at all. This is analysis paralysis. The irony is that more information doesn't always produce better decisions. Sometimes it simply produces more uncertainty. A useful decision doesn't require knowing everything. It requires knowing enough to make a reasonable choice. There is a difference between careful thinking and endless thinking. One improves the decision, the other delays it. And here's perhaps the most uncomfortable idea in this entire video. Intelligence can sometimes make bad reasoning more sophisticated. If you desperately want a particular answer, being intelligent gives you more ways to defend it. You can find more evidence, create more explanations, identify more exceptions, build a more convincing argument, but none of that guarantees that your original assumption was correct. This is why good thinkers don't only ask, how can I prove I'm right? They also ask, what would prove me wrong? That single question changes the entire decision-making process. So how do you actually protect yourself? Here are 5 simple principles. First, separate confidence from certainty. You can be confident without pretending you're certain. Second, actively search for evidence against your own conclusion. Don't just collect information that makes you feel right. Third, write down important predictions before you know the outcome. This makes it easier to discover whether your judgment is actually accurate. Fourth, ask what you would advise someone else. Distance can reduce emotional bias. And fifth, when making an important decision, ask, what information would change my mind? If the answer is nothing, you may no longer be evaluating the decision. You may be defending an identity. Being intelligent is valuable, but intelligence is not immunity from bad decisions. You can be brilliant and still be overconfident. You can be highly educated and still fall for confirmation bias. You can have decades of experience and still fail to adapt. And you can build an incredibly sophisticated argument for something that simply isn't true. The goal isn't to become someone who never makes mistakes. That's impossible. The goal is to become someone who can recognize mistakes faster, someone who can change their mind without feeling defeated, someone who values being correct more than looking correct. Because ultimately, good judgment isn't about always having the right answer. It's about being willing to discover when your answer is wrong. And perhaps that's one of the most important differences between being smart and being wise. This is Discover Insight. We explore the psychology, strategies, and technologies shaping the world beneath the surface. If you want to understand not just what is happening, but why it is happening, subscribe to Discover Insight. And I'll see you in the next one.